Alrighty, so part the first of Space Wurm versus Moonicorn. I'm going to start ahead of time with let's hear, using the Gauntlet inclusivity policy, and also we'll be using both either or of the X card and script change for safety tools. I'm assuming most people know what the X card is. If people don't know script change, it's basically kind of pause, fast forward, rewind. Rewind is basically what the X card does. It's basically kind of like, can we just kind of roll back and try a different way? Pause is, I'd like to kind of like just pause things right here and either take a break or just give me a moment or whatever. And fast forward is, I'm fine with this happening, but can we just like skip right to like when this is over? And any of those things or X card is totally fine. And if all those you can either just say, or you can, for X card at least, you can just do that if I can see you. Hopefully I can. Or also we will have a dice roller. Let me find the dice roller.
You made the dice roller. How can you lose it?
I can lose the window that I already opened. Yes, exactly. And there are buttons on there as well for using the X card and script change, etc. So, okay.
Oh, wait, there it is. Got it.
So, everybody has already picked their characters. We've also done some offline choices and whatnot with regards to the fronts we'll be using. If I remember correctly, Space Wurm controls the Imperial Throne and the Secret Police. Interstellar Transit and the Spice are not in this game, which means that aliens, cybernetics, and religion are on the table and are not controlled by anyone. We have Vincent took charge of giving us some information about the religion. Matthew took charge about giving us some information about aliens, and Andy took charge of giving us some information about cybernetics. We'll briefly go over most of that stuff. Hangouts Toolbox, that would be great. If only it ever showed up for me. So, trying to think where we want to start. I guess let's first start with, let's talk about the world building stuff. So let's talk about the fronts that are available right now. So why don't we start with the aliens first. Matthew, can you talk to us about the aliens?
I can indeed. Sorry, I was just wheeling away for a moment.
No, it's fine.
I guess my first thought with the aliens is I think symbiotic relationships in nature are very interesting. I think there's a lot of cool stuff there that already exists, and I figure reality is a great influence for space weirdness. So what I kind of ended up on is that we have two different species. There's the Doro, which are kind of like large, gray-skinned humanoid figures. They have they're kind of sinewy, wiry strengths to them. Big hands, a big mouth, wide, flat teeth for crunching on rocks and minerals and stuff like that. Because that was one of the options that they could eat. So why not? And yeah, that's kind of them. They're generally positive, relaxed disposition, usually a smile on their face kind of thing. And then we have their symbiotic partner, who are, I think, the Gilliac, I'm going to go with. I'm going to put an A in there. And they are kind of much smaller, probably 2 to 3 feet tall, blue, tealish in color. They have a lot of different little limbs that are very good at fine manual dexterity things. They have little heads that stick up and eyes on stalks, and they're generally quite sharp, but fast-paced and a bit frenetic. So they're very different, but the two of them work together in harmony in that they can link physically and I guess mentally and emotionally and a lot of things like that. The two species have this ability to sort of form this temporary bond where they, it's basically like piggyback style, like the Gilliac will jump up on the Doro's back and wrap their limbs around their front, and then they'll have their little head popping up next to the Doro's head. And in that state, they're both sort of, they make up for each other's weaknesses, and they're a lot more just effective and successful together in that sense. I also think that there's some sharing of memory and information and aptitude and stuff like that in that link. So it's very important to them. And if they go too long without a link like that, they start to wither and die. And I don't know if they actually die from that, but I'd like for it to be a thing that they need on a regular basis. And however, the unfortunate thing about that is that humans were like, hey, here's these people that we know nothing about. You know what they'd be good at? Manual labor. So they got scooped up and justified to the rest of humanity that they were able to, live this life in order to serve, to provide a path for someone destined for greater things, right? Like there needs to be people on the bottom to support those above who are going to accomplish the big important things, right? And that these aliens who didn't have the same intelligence on the spectrum that humans are used to, they're more intelligent and less in other ways. They saw them as obviously simpler and more used to just that kind of labor. So they ended up being taken off their planet, which I think their planet was in a bad state for some reason, maybe some natural resource they were lacking, or things were just going poorly, natural disaster, something like that. And the humans basically offered them a way off, offered them solace, a new life, new opportunity. And that was sort of their justification. And that's what's probably the propaganda too, or what's told to people who ask questions, is that, they've just been given a new opportunity elsewhere in space to kind of live. And I think some of them maybe have been transferred out to other planets, other operations, and I'd like for some of them to have escaped. And maybe there are some subversives. That was the second option that I chose, is that some of these aliens are working to free their kin and to fight against the wrongs that have been done to their people, and to live together the way that they were meant to, and not kept apart in order to maximize on their biological natural strengths, which the humans don't understand the intricacies of their link. So I like that sort of counterplay of them working better together, but it not being something that's allowed currently.
So a question with regards to the link thing. Is there preference to stay linked?
I think that staying linked for too long can cause sort of like a loss of individual identity, and sort of you can get scrambled and sort of forget who you are a little bit. So there is a danger in staying linked for too long, but together they can still accomplish better things, right? So some pairings will spend most of their time that way, and I think it differs from person to person, because there are some who it's an individual thing, and some would misuse that relationship, and there would be some conflict, of course, but generally they would stay together fairly often, I think.
Cool.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah. Do other players have questions about the aliens?
A question that's a leading question is the reason this pair of alien species had to come to this current planet less about is the reason behind whatever ecological collapse related to, I don't know, humans meddling with the biosphere, perhaps, or some other sourced in human shenanigans. It seems possible.
That I will take your lead on that one and say yes. If y'all who are in control of other industries or whatever would like to have a reason for that, maybe there's some sort of gas in the atmosphere that humans were mining and weren't coming into contact with them before.
There's no
and we're
spice,
just doing
I remind you, a space worm.
Yep.
Right.
Don't worry.
Well, it could be some resource that the cybernetics industry needs to power all of their stuff, or it could be something that the faith holds sacred or something like that. Whatever you guys think would be interesting. But yes, I like that the atmosphere has degraded, or some natural resource that they needed to survive has been dried up and they can't live anymore. So great question. And lead.
So I have a question not as leading as Andy's, but is it like, do they bond like in Avatar the movie that no one fucking remembers but was a big hit?
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of like that, and it's the same situation with humans mining for resources, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
With humans, like, messing around and involving
Okay.
themselves when they didn't really need to. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely a bit of an Avatar
We have a
inspiration.
touchstone there, is what I want to
Yeah.
say. Right? Okay.
Yeah, it's a good touchstone. And also with the link between the Na'vi and their flying creatures, right? It's kind of similar like that, where they would link that way. I imagine there's something on the back of the big Doro that the Giliacs would just like link onto somehow. I don't know how physically, it doesn't really matter, but yeah. Those are my thoughts.
Other questions?
I think that's cool stuff to start off with.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we can leave it that way for now, and I'd love to hear about y'all's ideas.
So, since we already touched upon the connection with cybernetics, Andy, you want to talk to us about cybernetics?
Oh, golly, do I? All right, let's pretend I know how I want to frame this all out and pull up the right front. All right, so I am interested when it comes to cybernetics with the idea of AI and computers being the two things that are advanced. When we talk about the framing with the game, it's that like there's however many of these details are advanced, and then everything else is sort of ineffectual or not noticeably advanced. And in thinking about AI and computers, the thing that I'm interested in is what was at one juncture AI has taken a very recent leap into being a way for people to cheat death by having their consciousness like scanned and uploaded into the cloud. Like everyone gets bagged up. That's the thing that is an interesting new problem I'm keen about, and I hope that doesn't break too many of the things or like make it more complicated, because we have a lot of different lovely things that we've all talked about going on. Well, everyone is the key thing, because who's a citizen? So I think there's some very important things here about how technology has often pushed things towards being almost a post-scarcity society, like food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, access to information, and access to a community are by and large available. But of course, if you've got money, you can get better stuff. And I imagine that the Doro and the, can you please remind me how to pronounce the other aliens again?
I think we're going with Giliac.
The Giliacs. So the Doro and the Giliacs, I feel like very conveniently don't qualify as citizens, possibly because they're not landowners, or make up any excuse you want that of course is not related to their status as a species, because that wouldn't hold water. So broadly, I'm interested in AI as a thing that is really actually about dead people having been uploaded to the cloud. I don't know, how do y'all feel about that?
I have questions about that, because in my Imperial Throne thing, I am Space Worm, by the way. One of the questions was who would inherit the throne if the Emperor died, and I answered the Emperor is semi-divine, but think like the Emperor from Warhammer 40K. It's kind of like that. So would his consciousness have been how one has his consciousness been uploaded, which probably yes. 2, what would it take for Space Worm to
No, because it's new. So
Oh, okay.
it would be my imagining is that this is the sort of thing that is like brand spanking new and maybe one of the many problems we're facing. Or there can be, please go ahead.
I just thought of there's a startup company that just kind of announced that they're trying to do consciousness uploading in real life, but they have to liquefy your brain to do it.
I like the idea of the Emperor being opposed to this, but Space Worm being for this, so that Space Worm can live eternal.
or if Space Worm is like, this technology is bullshit, I need to convince the Emperor to go through with it.
Or, I mean, you could say that the Emperor is just paranoid about it and wouldn't ever do it, even though it would mean that he could like rule forever. But you're going to back him up on like not wanting it to happen for him, and once he dies, then you could do it yourself. But
yeah, exactly.
I'm okay and avidly interested in all of these problems. So the more I happen to have come across something that people suddenly turn out to need, the better.
No, that all sounds pretty awesome. All right. Vincent, do you want to talk about religion?
Sure thing. So we have a monolithic faith in this setting. They're called the Narrow. And the idea of the Narrow faith is that every person is set to live a very strict path. Everyone has their own path, or there's a limited set of permutations of different kinds of paths, but it's in the magnitude of thousands. But each path has its own morality that people need to maintain really strictly. Because of that, you might have a person who walks the path of the thief, and they're expected by society to steal. But at the same time, you might have somebody who's on the path of the law, and they're expected to arrest the thieves and throw them in jail. And that's just part of what the thieves' path is. This is a fairly new religion in this setting, and has kind of started to step on the toes of the Emperor a little bit. They've become very popular because we had a setting where people were just getting very anxious and worried and indecisive, and finally having a group that could come in and say, look, we've got it all taken care of. You're this kind of person. This is the kind of life you should live. Ended up appealing to the masses more than I think people might have initially anticipated. They have a major library in whatever our capital city is, that their philosopher and astrologer path priests manage, and that contains all of the books that all the different paths that a person might get assigned to are held. And so at some point in your life, you need to make a pilgrimage to that city, to that library, meet with an astrologer who will divine your path and assign that to you. And then you have to live the best core of that path as you possibly can. The big opponents that this religion has is Moonicorn and the people that follow them. They're considered heretics, and they're called wanderers because they're not able to stay on any kind of path. I'm at this point, I'm basically just going right down the list of things. So some of the functions that the Narrow provides for people, it serves as stress relief, behavioral conditioning, censorship, because if it's not part of your path, you're not supposed to follow it at all. You're not supposed to even care. I had cultural knowledge. I'm going to delete that because I don't really feel that it makes sense to the ideas that I was going with. They promote the state's authority. They provide networking, so you can meet other people that are on the same path as you are. And education, and just kind of the way to live. Their core philosophies are hereditary authority, strict ethical rules, but on an individual basis, and personal journeys of an impersonal kind of nature, and their symbol is the vanishing point of two lines that are converging when you have a perspective drawing. Like if you stood on railroad tracks and stared down at them, they embody that point where it looks like the two tracks would meet.
Awesome sauce. All right.
People have questions or stuff they need fleshed out on that?
We've already discussed out of chat that the emperor, and you touched upon it, that the emperor is pretty much his own religion, but it's falling apart because of popular dissent.
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess we're going with that. So
we know that Moonicorn is a wanderer. How does Space Wurm relate to the Narrow?
I think that. Oh, sorry. Well, that's a more question for Space Wurm.
Space Wurm is definitely interested in this religion. I will find out more about it later on.
Cool.
Is the history of this relatively new religion a very clear backlash against a prior version of society that had a lot more openness, and thus in some great failure? Like, I'm very curious about this idea of, like, you mentioned that it's new, relatively speaking, and I wonder what sort of time scale, if it's generations or 2 years, and if you have a sense of, like, when they talk about what the before times were, and what that perhaps what the doom and gloom story is about why this is so much better.
Yeah, I think that this religion was formed in part as like a backlash to the Emperor's secret police. So people lived in like this kind of fearful state because the police would change what the rules were on just a day-by-day basis so that they could arrest people that they considered to be political enemies. And this was kind of set up as a way of like, no, this person is acting the way they're supposed to. You need to leave this person alone. They're following their path.
Sweet. Excellent.
Definitely dig it.
Do you need me to explain my stuff now?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. We've talked about the Imperial Throne and the Secret Police a bit, but for the Imperial Throne, we've established that popular support is weak, but legal frameworks and military power are strong. It is a pretty much lawful evil society. Space Worm is pretty much the second in command for the Emperor. And like established, the Emperor is kind of like this figurehead emperor, like in 40K. And yeah, that's basically it for the Empire. It's like the Emperor is weakened and paranoid, and pretty much is leaving Space for him to do most of the shit he's supposed to do. The Secret Police was created by Space Worm, and let me see what I can do answering the questions. And which of your friends and family have been affected by the Secret Police? Are you implying that my family is fighting the Secret Police? So Space Worm may have a family, might be fighting the Secret Police. We don't know. And who have you lost to the Secret Police? I think the Secret Police may have been like in constant like fights with Moonicorn, maybe not directly, but like Moonicorn and their shit and their posse or whoever that might be. And yeah, they're like, it's kind of like military police / secret police, I guess. So it's kind of like that. I'm imagining are there any questions about either the Imperial Throne or Secret Police? Sorry.
Does the Empire know that you have a secret police force?
Oh yeah, I think it's like it was sanctioned, and I think that's why the Emperor wanted me as their second in command, because I did form this secret police that is inherently loyal to the Empire.
Where the Empire equals you.
Pretty much.
And the relationship between the Emperor and the Space Worm is relatively like who's waiting for who to stab each other in the back. Like, what's that? Is that a hereditary thing? Is that was like one of many unworthy children proving themselves worthy? How did that come to be? Do you have a sense?
I think it's, well, the Emperor is quasi-divine, therefore has no being, no heir, sorry. No, and because that would be heresy. Or at least children as heirs. If the Emperor were to die, most likely would go to me as his second in command. And the relationship is, I'm not sure if the Emperor is aware that I'm basically trying to stab him in the back and gain power. But I think, well, he might be aware that that the Empire is in decline. Let's just put it that way. He could be well aware of that. And we did establish that he's paranoid, so he might be aware that Space Worm is trying to betray him at some point. It's just whether he can do anything about it or not is the question.
I see that you listed on the secret police that their surveillance tech is problematic.
Oh yeah.
Do you care to elaborate?
Sorry. And then military assets and legal impunity is extensive. Surveillance tech is problematic. I think I'm imagining that there's no tracing. Like there's no recordings of what happens. So kind of like, think like nowadays with the whole, and X card me if you want, just the Black Lives Matter movement, but instead of the people posting videos about it, there's like no like evidence of anything.
Does like camera technology not exist in our setting?
Yes, it does, but for whatever reason it's not being used as much in terms of like police environments, which adds to the public discomfort, I guess.
Works for me. All right. People having somewhat of a okay feel about how things look and feel with regards to the universe that we're playing in. If I remember correctly, because we don't have interstellar transit, we are kind of stuck with one kind of like solar system. It sounds like we are going to at least have some sort of kind of not particularly habitable planets, or hard to be habitable, or maybe they're being terraformed or something like that. And then one main habitable planet. Does that sound right? Does that sound cool for people? Cool. Yes. So why don't we start talking about the cast of characters that we have here? And you know, we should start with the titular characters, I guess. So, Space Worm, do you want to introduce yourself, and then we can, well, yeah, when we introduce all the characters, then we can wrap back around and we can start doing the bonds stuff.
All right. Space Worm is like established. He's the right-hand man of the Emperor. People address him as "Oh, revered excellency" and whatever other good titles there are. He's not super picky about that, but if we were using the the straight version of the book, the Dungeon World version, he would be lawful evil instead of just evil or whatever. But we're doing quick play, so yeah, there's that. I'm imagining that this space worm has been modified in some way, like either maybe not genetically because we don't have that as much, but like cybernetics maybe. Let me see. We don't have replicants or robots either as much, but I'm guessing some sort of computerized parts of him, if that makes any sense. Like he controls his body via computers or something. I'm not entirely sure, so so I have to think about that some more. But he's not entirely human, is what I want to say.
So
And
not 100% flesh, as it were.
yeah.
Okay.
So in my starting special move is weirding module, in which I can speak with the voice of the Emperor himself.
Nice.
So there's that.
What is how would you describe what Space Worm looks like?
I have to find a picture still, so
Okay, I can come back around.
yeah.
All right, Moonicorn, tell us about yourself.
Okay, so Moonicorn. Let's see, where would you like me to start? You want me to start with just a description?
Why don't we start with the name and then yeah, description.
So Moonicorn is known as Ziggy. Pronouns they, them. And Ziggy has this gorgeous rainbow mullet that extends down their back. And if you didn't know any better, you'd almost say that it looks more like a mane than a mullet. And the rainbows of the hair design streak down across their face. Their eyes, to a person of a normal spectrum of vision, appear to both have black irises, but in fact, one is an infrared iris and the other is an ultraviolet iris. The outfit that Ziggy is most commonly seen in is inspired by the Aladdin Sane costume of David Bowie. I'll post into our chat so that people can take a look. So it only has one sleeve and only has one leg. And they wear these knee-high lace-up boots that have a tuft of fur at the top and just like super thick spike heels that are so thin that it looks like they're just walking on the balls of their feet, making it look like hooves.
All right. So what was the special move that you decided upon?
I chose the Speak from the Heart special move, which allows me to communicate effectively with anyone and everyone in my presence, whether they are alien, animal, or human being.
And what is your gear?
My gear, I have a gigantic guitar, like a legit axe of a guitar. It has printed on it, "This machine kills space worms."
Subtle.
Very subtle.
And I have a signal jammer, which Space Worm would like to get their hands on because that is what has secretly been blocking the surveillance of the secret police.
Nice. All right. Let us go to the lover.
Oh, golly. All right. So today we are joined by the lover, whose name is Cypress. Pronouns they, them. Cypress. I'm just going to pick right off of the look sheet because that's one of my favorites. Hungry mouth, not shy, strong hands. And I think it's important to note that we've got some pretty strong, like, if they were inclined to look a little bit more like a grown-up, they might look like they were doing some combination of like street casual clothes and like maybe they have to go into an office. The reason why they're affiliated with all of the cybernetics stuff is that they have come into being the the majority shareholder of the company that has piloted all this tech stuff. So I imagine due to some awkward inheritance that has recently come to pass. And the special move that I went with was Rapture, which is when someone is fascinated by the lover, they cannot attack until you attack them.
Excellent.
Is there anything else I need to bring on with that? I wanted to make sure I got back to the part on the front because I didn't mention it earlier.
No, we're okay right now. I'm sure we'll get a little bit more complicated once we start doing bonds and stuff like that, though.
Mm-hmm.
And the alien. Excuse me, the other. I apologize.
No problem. I am playing the other. My name is Nyla, Nyla. Pronouns also they, them. So from the looks, there's a lot of inspiring options for the looks for the other. Some I'll read. Escape from the mechanism, absurd life, autumn into winter. A lot of crazy stuff. But I was especially inspired by After Dream. And the way that I interpreted that and sort of what I'm thinking about Nyla and where they're from is that they're from sort of the realm that the mind inhabits in between dreams, sort of. I don't know exactly what that means right now, but they're from a place like that. The way that I think that they appear is a different component of their look for each person would provoke a sort of nostalgic, hazy sense of recognition. Like, you know, that feeling that you get when you're trying to remember a dream and you're trying to piece something together, and some of it you recognize and it's clear and some of it is just beyond your understanding. That's kind of like what their whole look is. So I imagine to most people, like they have sort of a large shawl that is black primarily, but streaked with lines of blue, red, and yellow. But I think I think that they would wear gloves. At least this is how they would appear outwardly. I don't know how physical they are entirely. You know, boots, probably a head wrap of some kind. I think their skin is very white or gray or a little translucent. But again, to everybody, a little bit about them appears differently, or something sticks out to every person. I think that they don't know how they came here, although they might have an idea. I think that this is sort of where my mind went. I'm not totally solid on this yet, but I think that in the place that they are from, which is sort of like this realm that exists between where human consciousnesses move between dreams, they're instructed to sort of be very insular and protect themselves, because if they extend too far out, they'll be caught into a dream of a human and sort of pulled through from their dimension into the mortal dimension, sort of. And I think maybe the way that Nyla got pulled through is that they're very curious and ended up wandering too far and wandered into somebody's dream and then got anchored into reality. And I think it's probably one of your dreams, and there was some sort of fated connection there. But yeah, that's my kind of wild idea currently. Trying to still piece it together. Is anything need clearing up? I'm sure a lot of it will get there, I guess.
So what is one place in this galaxy where you feel at home?
Right. I'm going to go with In Total Darkness. And I think Nyla's true form can only really be seen in total darkness. I don't think we know what that is yet, but I think that their realm was total darkness, right? And then all these lights and pinpricks everywhere of all these different little pocket things were dreams happening, and they were instructed to stay away from there, away from the light. So I think that they're very sensitive to the light and to a lot of colors, and it's kind of overwhelming for them.
I have to pause for a sec because I need to get my food, so I'll be back.
Okay, cool. We can take a pause.
So the other is a kobold.
Oh, afraid of light. Yeah, I got you. Yep. Ooh, I like. There's like a candle idea there. But yeah, I think that because they don't have that kind of connection, because from where they're from, they didn't interact with other people. That was just part of how they lived. I think that the idea of, the lover is they kind of play a counterpoint a little bit, where they're, not trying to open up, and probably the idea of that symbiotic relationship would be like very foreign and strange to them. Yeah.
Great. The counterpoint part is real fun, right? Like,
yeah. And I was trying to think of like, what's the goal or the dream or whatever of the character, and I guess we can figure that out. But it's probably that something that they saw in the dream that they had, that they're trying to either understand or to meet that person, or to cause something to happen, because they are curious, and I do want them to push against the nature of isolation and stuff like that. So we'll figure that out.
Cool beans. Well, since I don't want more stuff to pass without Maria hearing it, we can do idle chit chat.
Quick, entertain ourselves. Go.
Exactly. So, where are people located? I'm in New York. I know Vince is in Jersey.
Yep.
Y'all are neighbors.
I'm
Close
in New
enough.
York every day. I still work in the city.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm a little northwards. I am in a little town called Georgetown, Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like probably 45 minutes away from Toronto. So that's the point that every Canadian orients himself to. So
I'm a little to the left on the map, and I'm out of Olympia, Washington. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I grew up in Squim.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, hi, neighbor.
I'm sorry, Squin?
Yeah, it's a typo.
Very true. So good. Awesome. Super good. Let's see, what's the wonderful, most, bestest, worst thing you all had going on as of late? And I mean that probably in the scope of games. Let's keep that to something we're willing to share. I don't know where everyone's stoke is at. Like, have you all seen Starcrossed? Alex Roberts' game kicking around? I got a lot of excitement about her wonderful game in the moment.
I adore the fact that for two double exposure cons straight, she forgot to bring Jenga towers to run her game, to playtest her game, and she had to like find other people who happened to have brought them and bum them off of them.
Takes a community.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would have loved to play at Breakout, but she was very busy running playtest constantly. But I've been excited for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a good chance to get some folks who aren't gamers to game, because a lot of my very doodly friends probably wouldn't be super on board with that game. But I have luckily there are others who I'm looking forward to playing it with.
Yeah, for our friend up north, today is tax day in the United States. Yeah. Did not get a return this year. Very much.
Boo woo.
You mean no rebate, you mean?
Sorry?
No rebate, you mean?
Yeah, no. Ended up owing about $2,500.
That's the wrong direction.
Yeah, it was better than I was first afraid, where our accountant took a look at things and was like, "Oh yeah, you owe $5,000."
Oh, lovely.
No.
I think we almost basically broke even, if I remember correctly. So like doing it exactly right in theory.
Yeah. I had 1 year I got a return of $1.
Nailed it.
Yeah. They sent the check.
Fun times.
Hi, Violet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I was gonna say, who's the dog friend?
Yeah, that's Violet. You'll probably see her on occasion.
I'm in more dogs.
Okie dokie. So how did you end up finding the gauntlet, Andy?
Tomer.
Okay, cool.
This is all Tomer's fault.
Cool.
He had talked very warmly about the matter, and am suitably nosy and wanted to come see what was on about. I have the pleasure of being able to play various games here and there on the good old internet,
Yay!
which some of you may or may not be aware of. I don't know. I stream on occasion with some people because I'm
Cool.
that version of a nerd. Hello, we're doing it again and some more. It's super great. And then it's been real neat to see this community of folks, which I am prior unaware of, right? Coming together, doing some rad things, and continuing to like grow and work on being actively rad, which is very important to me.
Yeah. No, it's a really good group of people. I've been a part of for maybe like maybe a year or something like that. But everybody's very, very supportive. I think that's kind of like the biggest thing that I have found, and that is something very nice. And since a lot of people end up going to the double exposure conventions, I tend to get to see them in person, which is nice.
Yeah.
And coming up in May, I get to go to Camp Nerdly.
Have all of the fun on my behalf.
I will do so. This will be my third year going. I enjoy it a lot. I keep being completely paranoid of ticks, but other than that, I usually have a pretty good time.
In the grand scheme of things to worry about, I'm glad it's something that is addressable.
Yes.
Upon the occasion of it coming up.
Yes.
Did I miss anything?
Nope. We mostly just were doing random chit-chatting.
We entertained ourselves.
Yes. And you now have food.
Yeah. Do you guys mind meeting on camera, or do you want me to turn it off?
If you mute, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm okay with people eating. Alrighty. So, why don't we go? Since Space Wurm is eating, we will go in the opposite direction with regards to starting to talk about bonds. So why don't we just start with the other?
Okay. I haven't totally thought about this a lot.
That's what we're here for.
Great. Wow. Okay. Starting with me. Okay. So one of the questions is, who brought you to this new play? I'd like for that to be whoever I had this dream link with. I think it could be fun if it was Moonicorn, because Moonicorn's always a dreamer. Does that sound like it makes sense, Vincent?
I am down with that.
Okay. Very cool. Then you brought me to this new place. If you'd like, you can think about what maybe that dream was that I entered into, and we can kind of think about why it was compelling to me, although anything would have been compelling to me because it was so new and crazy of an experience. But for whatever reason, you have brought me and anchored me to this world.
I sense Moonicorn's dreams are probably pretty
vivid
and drawing.
Yeah. I picture that we met at the proverbial crossroads, which I have what might be a memory and might not be of that being where I got my guitar. But meeting at that point and splitting off into 4 different directions to pursue 4 different paths and meeting you along all 4 of them, and sensing that this is someone or some being that belongs in any existence that there might be.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, and we can figure out kind of where we're at once we've gone through a few more of the bonds. But I do like that there's this constantly in your path for whatever fated reason. I'm kind of really interested in knowing what Andy's or what Cypress's relationship is with the others before I figure out how I'm involved there, because I don't know. Would it be okay to switch that order a little bit? Although one that I'm thinking would be a fun one is that Cypress holds my heart in their hands, but we can.
I could do that easily.
I'd like to see where you are at with Moonicorn and Space Wurm before I figure out how I relate to you. Is that all right?
Yeah, that sounds great. I have no problem with us all like figuring it all out together. No problem. So let's look at these two. So the key bonds that the lover has. It's a real cute dog.
Did I miss Space Worm's bond, or rather the other's bond with Space Worm?
No, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, cool.
No, we're
bouncing around, it appears.
So the two upfront bonds with the lover are, what do you love about Space Wurm, and then what do you love about Moonicorn? And I'm in the spirit of obvious. I'm real keen on the idea that Cypress loves Space Wurm's ability to get shit done, have control, be in power. Like, it's pretty practical. Like, this person seems deeply competent, and is clearly like a nexus of power and ability. So I think it's kind of the competency is hot thing. It's kind of what I'm feeling. And then in regards to Moonicorn, I think it's just the other side of the coin. In that, in being like freewheeling and foregoing binaries, and check me, Vince, on if I'm misrepresenting Moonicorn, being sort of anti-establishment, like all of these things that are lovely and good. And the Moonicorn is also, do I remember correctly, pushing against a lot of systems of control and oppression and marginalization. Yeah. So awesome. So I think that's also very important to the lover, as someone who has access to all this technology that's very obviously not available to everybody, who would like to share that, cannot necessarily share that, doesn't know if that's ever possible or even is in the greater good of the world at large. So that's what I have for those two. And then I've got bonds from there, which there's going to be one to point at the other, which Nyla. And depending on what Matthew wants to do there, I will wait and see what he's on about. How are you all feeling? Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, no, I think that all sounds good. Do we want to maybe bounce around a little bit and we have Moonicorn do one or two?
Sure thing. So I think the first bond that I want to address is who has been your friend the longest? And I think that's Space Wurm. I think we go way, way back. The relationship that I imagine a little bit, if anyone watched Devilman Crybaby on Netflix, you have the two main characters in that who are childhood friends, but one is Satan and the other is ends up bonding with the demon and trying to save that Satan figure. And so like there's not this hope that I'm going to be able to redeem Space Wurm, but there's this mourning for something that's been lost.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I think I feel the most comfortable around the other. I know that, Matthew, you mentioned a name. Can we get it added to our character doc?
We can indeed.
Awesome, thank you.
It's Nyla.
Nyla. Yeah, I feel that Ziggy feels a lot in common with Nyla, because Nyla has this kind of temporality and is not easy to define. And Ziggy feels that most other people, you can get a glimpse of who they are just by asking what path they're walking, and that's the full limit of that. I think I've heard the most stories about Cyprus, and basically that everyone that has met them has fallen hopelessly in love, and Ziggy's still looking for who their true love is going to be, and wonders if there might be a possibility there. They feel like they haven't made that connection yet.
Red.
Approved.
Space Worms bonds are really fucking easy. One of them is mandatory. Space Worm is treasure. Or sorry, not Space Worm. Moonicorn is treasure.
Okay.
So yeah, there's that. Everyone else is either just currency or treasure. And for now, I have everyone as just currency unless you guys convince me otherwise.
Would anyone like to try to convince Space Worm that they are treasure as opposed to currency?
I don't think there's anything to argue with there. I mean, we'll have to play that out.
Yeah.
Spend me as you will.
Maybe it will be changed later. All right. So the other, do you want to continue?
Sure. I'm trying to figure out where Nyla is at in this world. I guess they've been here for maybe a few years, so they're still like disoriented and don't know how to live here. Maybe even just a few months. I like them being still pretty fresh and confused a little bit. So I guess I in interest of sort of aligning us all in a good way so that we have a lot of things to play off of, like I'd like for me to be either like traveling or working with one of the characters or something like that, because Nyla currently doesn't have a major goal. So I like the idea that, you know, they saw something in the dream that they had that made them want to pursue Moonicorn, but maybe someone else was in that dream, like Space Worm could have been in that dream as well. So I could have seen them there. And then I also, you know, want to get hooked into Andy's character, Cyprus. So
Do people have ideas?
So because one of them is who gives you orders that you obey.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I go ahead.
I have a bond, which is who needs you to look out for them. And it sounds like, depending on if that's interesting or not, as a power dynamic thing, I can see where. So if Nyla, if they are in a position of being curious, and it doesn't sound like their goal is to go home. To my understanding, is it to like have significant relationships, to like learn about this world, like somewhere? It's more about experiential. Is that kind of?
Definitely. Those two things that you said, learn more about the world and have meaningful relationships, are very important. And yes.
Okay.
What was your move, by the way, that you chose?
Yeah. I decided that way early on, and then I don't know if it's changed, but I think that it is... I like I like oceans tell you their secrets for now, which is when you're in your familiar element with someone else, you can ask one of these questions and they must answer. So when I'm with someone in total darkness, definitely a moment of vulnerability and exposure, but then I can learn things about people and they learn things about me probably too. But yeah.
I think if I may suggest something,
Mm-hmm.
who taught you something important about this place? I want it to be Space Worm, and I want it to be like the important thing is that this place is really fucking shitty, and you should probably go. Going would be the most practical thing.
I was actually thinking, yeah, the same thing pretty early on, that would be fun.
Yeah.
That I've learned from Space Worm just as like, you know, that something like that here exists. And maybe like people spoke from my home realm about nightmares and about like the horrible dreams that people would have and that you know, the elders might have seen in those dreams. And Space Worm is like an embodiment of those things. So yeah, Space Worm, you know, probably reminds me of home a little bit too. So then, yeah, the last thing is my and Cypress's bond, and Cypress's bond with me. So you are the primary shareholder of the big cybernetics company. Is that correct?
That sounds great. I'm real flexible, but that sounds like a fine place to be with some real boring corporate responsibility that gives me a lot of freedom to do whatever I want.
Well, Moonicorn, would you have dreamed of Cypress? Have you seen them before? Or have you just heard that everyone falls in love with them?
I think that I've dreamt of Cypress. I think that they're in the media a whole lot. Like they're probably interviewed frequently. So we haven't met face to face, but I feel that we've spoken in those lucid dreams that I've had. We have something going on there.
That's really cool. So then I either like that through you, I've sort of adopted that like strange, you know, curiosity and maybe love. So it could be who holds their heart in your hands, or it could be who saved you when you found yourself in trouble here. And that could play into the I need you to look after me, Andy. Do either of those speak more to you than the other?
Remind me of the first one again.
First one was that you would hold my heart in your hands because of this dream fascination that I and Moonicorn would have with you.
I like both of them a great deal. The idea of having gotten you out of some version of trouble is interesting, and like we get to learn a little bit more about the world. So it just depends on if you're more interested in like whatever it means to be in trouble. That's like acting outside of a path. Because I imagine that the narrow is deeply viable.
I would like to go with that one. I would still like to have some confusing feelings for you as well, of course, naturally. But
you can have more than one bond with one person because this is based on Dungeon World. So
yeah,
great.
You totally have two.
Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, I like that it's something, you know, because of my curiosity and, you know, I don't understand the concept of money or something like that. So it could be a financial thing that seems like something that would make sense. Like I just got way deep into debt or something, or stole something when I didn't mean to, and you paid my bail off or something like that. Maybe you witnessed me doing it and obviously not understanding what I was doing. Detail that a little more later, but
the lover is your sugar daddy.
in a cosmic sense.
Sugar parent. Let's date them.
Superb. I think this is lovely.
And did you want to go with that bond of I need to be looked after or something?
Let's see. I've got do you have interest in that? There's another bond that I have, which is who's gotten you into trouble before. It's like it's the same beast. Like I don't know if there's like this like bailing you out in and of itself is troublemaking.
I think both could be fun too. It seems like they work well together. That you know, I get into trouble enough that I need to be looked out for.
Yeah, awesome.
Moonicorn does that pretty well too.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's great if that feels good to you.
Yep.
Love it. And then There are some other bonds here about who I have a feud going with and who I want on my side, and I don't.
You don't have to fill all of them, or we can
Great.
figure them out later.
Then I will sit tight with the 2 bonds with Nyla.
Okay, I have a couple other ones that I do want to fill in.
Go for it.
I am trying to rescue Cyprus from their humdrum corporate life.
Yes. Yes.
Let's see here.
This is also boring. Come and play.
Come and live.
And I'm trying to pick another Space Worm one. And Maria, I'll give you 2 to pick from. So I have who do you go to for help when you need it, or who do you owe a debt to? And it kind of comes.
Oh, so we're playing Urban Shadows now, right? I like the first one.
Okay.
Just for that weird dynamic.
I need money.
Or both. Or both, if you want it to be that way. So you can have +3 with Space Worm.
Well, I don't get any plus. I don't have any.
All right, it's plus integrity. That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, I can use it to avoid having to spend integrity. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. I mean, I prefer the first one. I had to pick, but I like both.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go with that then.
What was that one?
That's who do you go to for help when you need it?
Oh, the irony.
No, it says this machine kisses space worms.
So I have a few questions. If people are done with bonds, which it sounds like you are. Yeah. All right. Let's start with the lover. What is keeping you away from the ones you love?
We all have very important jobs to do.
So work.
Work. Since I'm boring. I think that there's work. There's also a lot of issues around propriety. I feel like there's a lot of being from both work and the idea of being from different worlds. Situated as arguably being rivals in the world at large.
Okay. What plans do you have to bring them closer to you?
Turns out they need me. That's what all this technology is for.
Ingratiating yourself and making them need you?
Of course.
How will you show your love for them to the rest of the galaxy?
I'll let them upload their consciousness into the AI cloud.
Do they have to die first?
The technology will get better by then.
Moonicorn, what is the greatest injustice in this galaxy that you're committed to fighting against?
Conformity. People just aren't willing to explore who they really are.
Everybody's lemmings?
Heading right off the cliff.
Who's tried to oppress you in the past?
Does it have to be another PC?
Can be whoever.
Yeah.
If you want to bring in an NPC, feel free.
Yeah, I think that let's create an NPC who is a one of the astrologers of the Nero. Oh gosh, I want a really boring path that Moonicorn was assigned. I am open to ideas if somebody has something that's jumping out to them.
Boring as in corporate, like accountant, like, or is something more like mathematician, like something that's got like that's rigid?
I think rigid. I think accountant works well, and I think that there's still this regret because maybe I could have been an accountant at your company, at Cypress's company.
I was going to say the other option I was thinking was maybe whoever this recently dead person who now the lover has all of the shares from. Maybe they were somehow chasing after you
Yeah.
or repressing you somehow.
Okay.
Just another idea. But
Yeah.
totally not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the religious angle is almost, I mean, obvious is good.
Totally.
To branch out and kind of explore with a little bit more of the setting.
Cool.
I like that idea of, even if that that fellow shareholder died in an accident that I was connected to in some kind of way. You know, I don't want to reset my integrity right out the gate.
Yeah.
But, I could have prevented it.
Okay. All right. Other. What do you find most interesting about this new world you find yourself in?
Well, there's so much. I think it's the sense of community and interaction that people have, like the complexity of emotion and of communication that people have, because from where I'm from, it's so, everyone is so isolated that just seeing how nuanced people's feelings for each other are in the day-to-day, kind of how many people you need to interact with for different reasons, kind of just boggles my mind.
Who is someone that fascinates you? Not one of the characters.
Does Moonicorn have a band of friends?
Yeah, I think that Moonicorn is genuinely a musician. So they have bandmates and they have groupies.
Mm-hmm. Are you the lead guitar player?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ziggy plays guitar.
And Ziggy sings, right?
Sorry, I missed the question.
Ziggy sings too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Front person.
Yeah. Then let's go with the drummer. I like that. I think that the drummer is someone who is very up and down and kind of all over the place. And that is kind of like disorienting for me, but it's also fascinating. It's like, how is one person so many different things? And I think, yeah. Actually, let's go with the keys player, because that's way more on brand. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, like the synth player. I think that they're very very what you would expect. And they they wear so many different colors that just like looking at them is like difficult for me, but it's also fascinating. It's like, wow,
like more colors than Moonicorn.
Oh, it's a competition for sure.
I just have colors that human eyes can't perceive that are part of my usual outfit.
Nice.
Just casually drop that in there.
So, Space Wurm, how have you been trying to change the galaxy for the better?
The galaxy. Well, I guess this solar system. I think that the structure is good. So I want it to be more structured. I think I've been supporting some form of like s- I think the if it's okay with you guys, I think the aliens are really the only impoverished peoples. Like humans are pretty well off, and Space Worm had a part in that, at least in the humans being at least well off.
So are you saying that Space Worm made it so that there were more resources available to humans, whereas maybe perhaps prior, the poverty and marginalization of our two alien species was like used as a like at least we're better off than them, even though there were humans who were also very poorly treated, and that was like solved for? Is that what I hear?
Yeah, I guess. Our It's more like Space Worm helped end marginalization in humans, not necessarily between humans and aliens. If that makes sense.
I know that they are few, but what mistakes have you made that you regret and want to fix?
I think I want to fix the reason why aliens are marginalized is because at the time it was like very in demand, the natural resource consumption, and I kind of want to fix that. So it's like I want to put the aliens on an equal ground as humans. So it's like that's like the one thing Space Worm is good, good. Like he believes in equal opportunity, at least.
All right.
Is there a risk that could end up kind of throwing off that equilibrium, and that sense of like lack of scarcity?
It could, but it's that's why I haven't fixed it right away, because it's hard.
What mistakes do people say you've made?
The secret police.
So people think that was a bad idea.
Well, some people do. I think the ones who are more affiliated with the Empire say it wasn't a mistake. Well, it's, I guess, not really a mistake. It's more like they don't like it.
Right.
But an actual mistake would be that they think I've made. Letting the religion take the narrow take hold of the empire. I think it's a mistake that people think I've made. Whether it's intentional or not, I'll leave it up to you, or interpretation, or something else.
That's great.
Just in the use of obviousness and reincorporation, might it make sense if like the NPC who Moonicorn was kind of sort of oppressed by might have been the person who kind of like helped convince you to let the Narrow have kind of like a free hand?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. I'm calling them Nasu Forma if people are okay with just random names for people.
Sounds great.
That my Story. I need to get out my book of story names.
Oh yeah, I just went to like a space name generator.
Can you type the name out in
Yep.
chat?
I will.
Okay.
Sorry, could you just remind me of the role of that person that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so for Moonicorn, this was someone who is oppressive on Moonicorn, was saying that Moonicorn's path was to be an accountant.
Okay.
And this is also the same person who somehow convinced Space Wurm to kind of let the Narrow kind of have a free hand in the solar system.
Thank you.
No problem. And Cyprus, what? How long have you been close with Ziggy's synth player?
Oh gosh, how long have I been cozy with that person? That's probably a pretty like been with maybe six months. If I had to say, like it's pretty short lived, but still things are getting like we're no longer on our best behavior, right? We're kind of
You're cutting
moving
out.
past coming out of that honeymoon period, if I may be so gross.
Awesome sauce. All right. So it is 8:30. Well, 8:30 my time. I was thinking a short break. Do people want 5 minutes? Do people want 10 minutes? How are people feeling? 5? 5? All right, cool. So let's plan to be back in 5 minutes. Sound good? Awesome. So Maria, are you in Connecticut or PR at the moment?
Connecticut. I came back like a week ago.
Cool.
All right.
Alrighty. So. So, Space Worm, where do you feel at your most powerful? Where do you feel like you have the most control? And who is with you in that place?
I want to say my bedroom.
Okay.
Also, can you move your mic up a bit because I can hear your breathing?
Sure.
Not,
Sorry.
not yeah. All right. Thank you.
No worries. So, what does this place what does your bedroom look like?
It's very Spartan, very practical, but also big.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's like it's midway between luxurious and just plain.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like it has a big bed, but it's not like super fancy or anything. It's more comfortable than fancy.
Is it luxurious because it's understated? Like the fact that there's a lot of room is the part that
Yeah.
like makes it like swanky. Is that there's just a lot of square footage.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool.
Do we see this? So, is this in kind of like I guess, kind of a large apartment building, or is this kind of part of some sort of sprawling estate?
I think it's close. It's an estate that's relatively close to the emperor's throne room.
Okay.
So kind of like the emperor has a palace, and my estate is pretty much part of the palace.
Okay.
Like
That
a
sounds
large
good.
part of it.
Sounds good. Is this also is like this building also where the maybe the kind of hub of the secret police is as well?
Yeah.
Cool. So, what I think we see I think we see Unicorn maybe midday in his bedroom, and maybe he is taking a break away from whatever work normally busies him.
Wait, unicorn?
Oh,
Or
sorry.
something?
No, Space Worm. Sorry.
Yeah.
And would either the other or the lover, do you think they would be ever be in this place?
They could be.
Okay.
Like I'm their currency, but I don't. But I'm like, um, um, but I allow currency in my bedroom. That is fine.
um, Do either of the lover or the other feel as though they would have a reason to be there?
Can always come up with really good business meeting excuses to be around somebody. It's real
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, I think the lower would make more sense at this point.
So maybe the is the lover there to kind of like inform Space Worm of the new technology that is up and coming?
Yeah, deliver some real good news.
Maybe this is maybe you're delivering this news to Space Worm instead of, and Space Worm, of course, will take it to the Emperor. All right, so I guess roll back then. So the two of you have been chatting at a table in your bedroom, and there's a knock on the door, and someone in a low voice asks if they may enter.
Yes, you may proceed.
In comes, let's see here. I put this. Oh yes. The Emperor's financial minister. Excuse me. Manufacturing minister. Apologize. Elio Zevi, and he's an older gentleman, maybe in his mid-60s. Tall, somewhat of sunken face a little bit. His skin kind of is heavy or kind of deep onto his face. And he says, I thank you for giving me audience, O revered excellency. I come to inform you that unfortunately it appears that there are a number of coordinated marches going on at this very moment in time throughout some of the larger cities. And they all seem to be somehow focusing on the plight of the subspecies. And I wanted to know if I'm sure that your Space Worm, what is the name that you give to the secret police that isn't as blatant as secret police?
I'm not sure.
Does anyone else have an idea?
The quiet cops.
The quiet ones.
Quiet ones. Okay. I'm sure that the quiet ones have more information about this, but I wanted to make sure that you knew ahead of time. Obviously, the reason I'm fairly concerned about this is it seems as though there has also been lined up with these marches a work stoppage in a number of our facilities, both of the mining facilities and also of the electronics manufacturing facilities. And at that point, he briefly looks at Cyprus and then like looks down. I'm happy to inform you more when I have more information, but I will leave you to discuss this matter.
Who is leading this these marches?
There seems to be a number of people. A name that I have been hearing a lot, though, is one Courage Ngoma. They seem to be a human who seems to have been making good headway, riling people up about the supposedly horrible conditions which the subspecies live in, and apparently they have a number of obviously lieutenants who are working in all of these different cities. But that is the main name that I've been hearing.
Do we have a location?
On them, as far as I know, they are supposed to be giving a speech at one of these rallies or marches in 4 hours or so in the capital city.
Very well. I will see to it that I see this speech myself.
Of course, of course. If there's anything else, if not, then I'll let you speak. And he kind of like curtly bows and shows himself out.
Great. Cypress will spend sort of a long moment having like twisted around in a chair to watch this person primarily talk to Space Wurm about the matter and like stare at the door as it closes. Well, that's untimely but convenient, I suppose. Nothing like some more trouble to go with some good, exciting news. And we'll then turn back around and look at Space Wurm. How are we going to fix it?
How am I going to fix it? That is simple. I will listen and put in our concerns when it is our time to speak. And I want to consider how to interrupt the speech in the middle of in the middle of it and then show up.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to roll consider or study, and the question is, how do I pull this off?
How do you stop the speech, or how do you
interrupt the speech halfway through? And
okay.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm gonna roll for your party +2. Oh. That is a 11.
Okay. All right.
So
your question is answered.
Yeah.
So I think it would certainly be possible for you to get a number of. Well, I guess my first question is: do you personally want to like somehow like stop them, or?
Well, I want to personally give a speech myself.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what you would be able to do is, I think your quiet ones would be able to somehow kind of hack their way into the basically the audio system that this activist will be using, and whenever it is that you want to, you would be able to. They would be able to just kind of flip to you to speak instead.
Very well. Would I need Cypress? Well, that's a follow-up question that I'm not entitled to, but would I need Cypress's help for this?
What do you think, Cypress?
Seems my hunch is that if you want to make sure that you're going to be successful, that you need Cypress to send a specialist over to work with your team.
Very well. So Cypress would see Space Worm go quiet for a little while, and yes, very good news. May I request help from one of your specialists? I need to make an announcement rather shortly, and I want people to hear me.
You know, I love how you break the rules all the time. It's a really good way to get things done. Gosh, I am real excited about that. I appreciate your, well, you just don't even hesitate to ask for help. It's real good. You're real good at what you do.
What is the point of this flattery?
Well, there's just so many nice things going on, and I'm just so busy, and I want to spend so much time with you. But there's work to be done.
Lever, you're alone with someone right now, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Are you attracted to them, or are you not attracted to them?
I'm not attracted to them. They asked me for help.
Okay.
But they're very competent.
All right. So if you aren't fascinated with them, but you tell them what they've got going for them, they become fascinated with you if they aren't already fascinated. You can end this fascination at any time by choosing one of they're distracted by thoughts of you and lose an opportunity. They're inspired by you and take +1 to their next roll. They must meet you again, you say where, or they tell you a secret.
Perfect.
All right.
And I cannot attack them until they attack me. Because I'm, well, if, yeah.
Because I picked the special move.
Right? Oh, yeah, because you picked the special move. That's right.
Wait.
Yes, when someone is fascinated by you, they cannot attack you until you attack them.
Yeah.
All right.
I would be happy to call up one of my analysts for you. Hopefully, you'll do me the favor at some point in the future.
Yes, that is how dealings go. And
it's just because you're so darn nice.
It is because I'm efficient.
So I think we cut now to Moonicorn and the other. Moonicorn, you are in the middle of, well, you and your band were setting up to have a practice. But as you were setting up, there was a knock at the door, and when the door was opened,
no, on the downbeat,
inburst two masked men with guns, and you they told you that you were coming with them. Some of your band members were quick thinking and distracted them, and you and the other were able to make a break for it. But you're pretty certain that the two of them got past your band members and are hot on your heels. You are running. You're running down a back alley in the capital. What do you do?
Okay. First, I have a question. Are they
Sure.
an authority figure or institution?
You don't really know. They
Okay.
just came in and said that that you were coming with them, and all hell kind of broke loose.
Okay. I want to look around and see if there are any like crowds in the area, like if there's any kind of gathering that's moving in any sort of direction.
So it turns out there appears to be quite a few people kind of heading in one direction in one of the main thoroughfares here. Kind of a large mass of people.
Well, that looks like as good a bet as any. Let's make a break that way. Nyla.
Sure. Wherever you think's best.
And I start to work into the crowd. If somebody has like a sign with some kind of protest slogan on it, I ask to borrow it.
They definitely do, and at first they like kind of give you this weird look, but then they look at you again, and then they're like, "Oh yes, sure, here."
I flash a smile and take a quick glance. Is it in a human language, or is it in?
Yes, it's okay. Yeah, no, it's in a human language that you understand. It's I think it says like I think it's kind of like it says subspecies, but with like a circle around sub and like an X through it, basically.
Nice.
No species of subspecies. And I try to start a chant, so it looks like I'm an integral part of this crowd.
Oh, totally.
And as soon as you do, I immediately just like enthusiastically just jump in alongside you, just to follow you. In order to quickly further contextualize our relationship, I was thinking of adding in the bond, who gives you orders that you obey. And maybe not because you necessarily want to, but because I keep pestering you and telling you that I want to like work for you or help you with something. It's like what I think that seeing that dream made me think that I need to do. So now I'm basically like your band's like sort of assistant or gopher or whatever. And like, you don't really know what to do with me, but I just want to help out. Yeah. Roadie, like whatever you need me to fill in. And I just do it with enthusiasm because I think that, you're the reason I'm here. So I need to help out. And I think I've yet to show you what my talents are. So I seem a little bumbling and, what is this strange person all about? But I'm at least eager. So
yeah. You're like maybe just a little too like grovelly when I'm like, could you go grab me a Coke? And you're like, yes.
Yeah.
All right. So you are now in this crowd. But granted, you are Moonicorn, and you do stick out rather well. So you're kind of constantly looking back, and you can see the two people. They're obviously trying to hide their weapons, but they're making their way towards you. They definitely have spotted you.
Okay.
And you can see one of them kind of like signaling to the other, and one of them is kind of seems to be staying on the kind of sidewalk. The other one is kind of starting to mill his way, excuse me, into the crowd, and is kind of like pressing his way through, and is actually rather quickly squeezing his way towards where you guys are.
Hey, I'm trying to find if there is like a podium or grandstand or like anywhere that these people are trying to like congregate to. Basically, I want to bring more attention to myself, not less, so that they might consider this is not the best place to try to make an arrest if that's what they're here for.
So it looks like you're quite a ways away from wherever this like kind of main rally is going to happen, but there's definitely someone with kind of a like a electric loudspeaker type of thing walking nearby you. You might be able to kind of ask them to loan that to you, and you might be able to do something with it.
Hey, chap, I have something really important to tell everybody. Can I have your speaker now, please?
Oh,
you have to trust me.
Oh, totally, yeah. And he kind of like hands it over to you.
And yeah, I take it. I check to make sure that it's on, and say, "Attention, everyone!"
And people start kind of like looking around and looking towards you.
We have people in our midst that cannot be trusted. People that don't belong here, who want to shut down this entire protest. They're right over there.
And you're pointing at the people.
Yeah.
Okay. So a bunch of people like look at them, and the pair of them, they kind of like really quickly like kind of they know that they obviously stand out since they have like masks on, so they like kind of like take off the masks, and you start to see a number of people kind of like giving them angry looks, and they're definitely uncertain as to what they're going to do.
Nobody has to get hurt, but they need to let us continue. This is a peaceful protest. We have valid demands, whatever they might be. They need to disperse. They need to allow us to proceed.
And no. I think the people nearby them are continuing to give them dirty looks, and maybe some of them are kind of like pushing up against them. And you see the two of them kind of look at one another and then kind of like nod. And the one who is making headway towards you kind of like cuts out of the mass, meets up with the other person, and the two of them kind of like take off into an alleyway.
I hand back the loudspeaker to the person who lent it to me. But thanks. Do you want tickets to our next show?
Sure, please.
And I take down their name.
I wouldn't mind having like you turn back to look for me, and I'm already off chasing those people down the alley, and I could maybe ask the other world to provide me with more information about them.
Sure. Sounds like what does that look like?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this a little bit, and my home world is sort of this strange, realm, the place that inhabits the middle space between dreams. And I think that I'm used to sort of navigating that realm of consciousness, sort of. Mm-hmm. So I think that what that might look like is the other world providing me with sort of visions of their dreams or their internal thoughts or something like that, sort of like plucking these wisps out of their minds and being able to not necessarily read their thoughts, but get just maybe some vague images or something like that of the strong, maybe memories or thoughts that they have. I'm trying to think of how to refine this a little more, but that's definitely the idiom that I think I'm operating within.
Yeah, that sounds good. Why don't you go ahead and roll with Alien?
All right. That is a 10.
All right.
So on a 10 or on a 7+, my home brings me something similar, either from itself or by seizing something from this galaxy. So I've asked it to provide me something useful. And I guess the way that I do that is like, I think while I'm running, I close my eyes and I'm sort of able to navigate the terrain just based on the things that I can sense around me, because I'm much more comfortable in the darkness, sort of. So maybe that's how the information actually comes to me, is I get into this like natural instinct zone and I perceive this information sort of as like a waking dream.
Okay. So what comes to you is mostly in flashes and images, and it is of linked. Oh gosh, the name of the two aliens. Oh yeah, the Doro and Jiliax. So it's a group of these linked aliens, and they are kind of they're fighting back and killing their taskmasters, both in like machine shops and in mining places, and it's pretty intense and pretty brutal, but you can feel the rage in these beings coming through. So I guess now we're going to fast forward to is Cypress, or I should ask, has Space Worm asked Cypress to stay for when he's going to give the speech, or has Cypress been left to their own devices?
They're currency, but I'm fascinated with them, so I'm fine either way.
What do you think, Cypress?
Cypress would find a reason to like come back later, like loop back around, or like rendezvous at that point, or make a point to be in the audience versus like being attached at the hip, right? So
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I think we have a kind of like a cutscene of sorts where we see Cypress getting into a vehicle of some sort and kind of making their way to the downtown of the capital area, and you know exactly where this is going to be happening, and you're well known enough that you're able to kind of get to the head of the line, as it were, and and kind of be there for this main event. Um, is there anyone who you recognize in the crowd as someone who has been fascinated with you in the past, but not anymore?
Several people. I have a feeling that there's someone who is like a extraordinarily well-regarded like restaurateur in the city.
Okay.
Is the most maybe still like vaguely like twingy, like I recognize and linger on like line of sight, perhaps compared to a few other people who are no longer so critically important to me in the moment.
So I think they notice you, and they kind of give you a quizzical look. This doesn't seem. I don't think rallies are your standard place to be.
You are entirely correct. Certainly not down here in the groundling level, right? So
I think. So what? Who is this? And what is their
gosh,
name?
let me come up with a name for this person.
Okay, we can do that.
Let's see.
An alienish name, or do you want a regular name?
I'm okay with any of it. I'm trying to think of like Callum, Callum. Callum.
Okay.
Can you all hear me when I say that? Like,
Yep.
as a great
Okay.
pronouns are she, her?
Okay. So Colin gives you this quizzical look, and she starts to kind of squeeze her way over to you. And,
Great, and I'll meet her in the middle, right, very readily, and put an arm around that person's hip, like kind of cozy up as soon as we get close enough to in proximity.
Oh, she's kind of surprised. She says, "Well, you show up in the darndest of places.
Nice to see you too.
What brings you here?"
Here, there's going to be a surprise, but I have no idea what's going on. Do you know what's going on?
I mean, I hear there's going to be a speech of some sort. At least that's what it looks like. It's all set up for. But and also, I'm I'm not a huge fan of the whole uh, division of the species and whatnot. So I'm here to kind of register my distaste for that.
It is rather inconvenient, isn't it?
It is, and it's at that point that a let's see here, a dark-skinned woman with a large kind of, I think, mane-ish, like Moonicorn, mohawk, or actually, I guess half hawk, let's say. So let's like say shaved on one half and then like full hair on the other side.
Love it.
Kind of makes her way up to the podium, and she kind of like tests the mic and whatnot, and she starts to give this pretty fiery speech about how the empire and the emperor have for so long kept the created this division in the species that shouldn't be there. That there should be, common cause with the Doro and the Giliacs, and that that actually, sorry, one moment, please.
It's so tense and exciting.
I know, mid-speech.
Big deal.
The people are fired up.
I was just thinking about how if I change the order of the aliens and the names when if I say the Giliacs first, it's easier to remember for some reason. Because I keep having a hard time remembering that it's the Giliacs.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I should have just gone with a nice 2-syllabiler, because those are always, they just stick right in your head, and then I added that extra one in there, but it's fun.
Sorry about that.
It's all your fault. No worries.
So yeah, so this speech is kind of like going on, and people are definitely kind of like getting into it, and lots of kind of fist shaking and stuff like that. And I guess maybe about 5 or 10 minutes into this speech, she's like really going at a good clip, and I think that's probably about when the sound kind of like cuts out briefly, and then instead we hear someone else's voice.
It's actually the Emperor's voice because I have that move.
So what does the Emperor say?
The Emperor says this more eloquently than I'm doing right now.
Sure.
This rally is unlawful and must be put down. There are military soldiers all over, in all the locations, and we will execute whoever stands in our way.
Wow. So I think we start to see kind of large groups of armed police kind of like start to kind of funnel out of some of the buildings and some of the alleyways. And
I think I need to take a stand.
well, so what does
Well,
that look like?
do that now.
Yeah, so I think that as Space Worm continues to kind of make announcements and encourage people to disperse
In the
their
Emperor's
signal.
voice, just
Yeah.
like I do, like if I may add, no one knows it's actually Space Worm at this point because it's the Emperor's voice. It's
Of course.
not like it's not actually Space Worm, as far as I know.
Cypher's probably knows.
Yeah, Shane, would you need me to
Cypher, yes, Cypher knows it's Space Worm, but it's like
before
most-
being able to interrupt this? Do you need me to assess the situation, or am I able to kind of jump in? I'm just taking a stand against the Emperor.
No, I mean, if you want to, yeah, I mean, certainly if you want to just take a stand, tell me what that looks like, and you can go ahead and do that.
Okay, so I first activate my signal jammer so that the Emperor's voice gets turned off.
Look at you.
And so there's just like kind of this general confusion, and I take the podium.
Okay.
And I think I have my guitar with me because I always do. They broke in,
running around with like this gigantic axe strapped to you, and you're totally just still going with it.
Perfect.
And yeah, I plugged into the system and just like let out a blasting power chord as my way to draw the attention of the crowd.
All right.
And I'll spend integrity for that.
Okay. And you're drawing the immediate attention of everyone around you?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you going to do with that?
Said, now don't get me wrong. We all have a great deal of respect for our Emperor, but this is This is not just a lawful gathering. This is a just gathering. With people fighting for their rights, fighting for their ability to make a statement about who they are and not be relegated to sub-citizen status. Now, they might come after you with their guns, but we outnumber them. Let's take back these streets.
And there's definitely some kind of like fists going, and like definitely some agreement with what you're saying.
I think that I'm trying to convince, which could go horribly wrong. It's up to you.
I can.
Not everything has to be a move, so it's okay if you think I haven't triggered it.
Yeah. So Cypress, are you swayed by what Moonicorn is saying?
It's not very factual. I also don't know. It doesn't seem real good for business. It seems real good for optics, though. So I am less. It's less a matter of being swayed by the matter, is realizing that like this is going to happen no matter what. So supporting this and finding a way to make sure it doesn't completely tank my company. That's where I'm at.
So, I think a side effect of that signal jammer is that the soldiers have been kind of like cut off from their communication, and they all seem to be uncertain as to whether or what they should be doing.
Great.
So what I will say is, let's see. Yeah, I think you start. I think some people start to kind of move towards the police on a number of different sides, and they're moving slowly and peacefully. But there's definitely some soldier gets spooked, and like you start to hear like shots being fired, and hearing people going down.
Oh boy, great. So that means it's time to not get shot while trying to approach somebody so that I can get them to wire into their commanding officer, because my analyst is on loan to them. Like use that authority of knowing that person's name and who they're working with to convince them to like stand down, at least stop killing people. That's killing people is bad for PR.
Bad for business.
Real bad. So, and I don't know if that's do something dangerous or ask for a favor. It's not really like out of the kindness of their heart or whatever.
Well, or whatever.
Or whatever a bit, yeah.
Yeah, I think when we see when we try to do something dangerous. Let's say you make your way over to some group of soldiers where some member there seems to be somewhat officious looking.
If they're a little taller than everyone else and they have a fancier helmet.
There you go.
Definitely, because I imagine these folks are sort of kitted up in unfriendly gear.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm guessing that's Beast then?
Oh, interesting question. Yeah, I guess that's in order to stop people from fighting?
Yeah.
Roll with peace?
I think that is correct.
Cool.
So that being the case, Cypress is at +1 for peace, so that's a 2d6. I see that there's 2d6 and there's 2d6 brackets with a P, like in
that
means
pipped, so like with like little dots.
Which I prefer, but I would have to count that here, so not today.
All right.
So 2d6 with a +1.
Well, it does tell you the roll total when you roll, so you don't have to count out the pips if you don't want to.
Great. It looks like I did very poorly. I cannot tell what I'm reading in a minute.
It's
Can
a
you?
snake eyes.
Oh, so good. Yes.
Wow. All right.
So good.
Oh, fun. All right.
Yes. Failure. Bring it.
Unless I can make eye contact.
I believe in you.
I don't know. Were you were you nearby?
I mean, like, I don't want people dying either, and I'm up on the podium. I don't
You're
know.
on the podium, and
Yeah.
Cypress is.
I mean,
not-
did you notice Cypress going down there?
I think that I would just because I have a high vantage point, but I don't know if I can. Like, I'd have to push through the crowd to back Cypress up, and I don't know if I have that kind of control at this moment.
Yeah, I think yeah, I don't think you'd be able to get there in time.
Watch it all go to shambles instead.
Yeah. So I think so yeah, I think they basically don't really care who you are. But they can tell that you're like not just the common riffraff. So he like says something to someone, and they grab you and they handcuff you.
Rude.
And one of them starts kind of like, "That's my dog."
Is she okay?
My wife just got home, so now she's going to be very excited.
Well, that's a worthy thing. That means we're okay. That's the most
Yes.
important part.
So yeah, so one of them is starting to kind of like take you off down a side street to kind of like probably take you and put you in a paddy wagon of some sort.
Right. Zip ties, right?
Right.
Boo.
So yeah, what's the other doing at this point?
Well, if I can see that happening, I might. Normally, I'd be looking to Moonicorn for orders here, but Moonicorn is pretty occupied, and if I see Cypress being taken away in handcuffs, I might try to do something about that.
All right. What does that look like?
Well, I imagine I think that it's me. It's me like sneaking down the alleyway. So you said there's like a couple officers taking the lover or taking Cypress down an alleyway, sort of in handcuffs.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how Nyla would deal with sort of like conflicts like this. And I want to be wary of constantly asking the other world for useful things every time I try to deal with a problem. But
you'll eventually roll 6. It's fine.
If you're worried about the conflict and you feel like you're like Nyla's conflict adverse, you could always wait to deal with non-human points of conflict, right? Like the following and seeing what paddy wagon air quotes. Like for if you're not sure about like direct conflict with people, or if you want to try that. I mean, that's fun too.
Yeah.
Or you could act impulsively.
I think it could be like I think I might try to, convince them that there's like more important things happening nearby. I might, I think I might run up to them. And these are secret police, or they're just officers, or
They seem to be soldiers of some sort.
Yeah. So I think and there's just a couple of them, right? Yeah, I think I'd run up and say, excuse me, the Emperor's has some important people here, and they're being mobbed by the protesters, and it's just round that way, and they need any help that they could get. Please.
All right. I guess you're doing that on behalf of someone else, so that's roll plus curious.
Great, my curious is a little better. Okay, let's re-roll these things. Hey, that's a 10.
All right. They do what you want if you make them a promise. And I'll tell you what.
Sure. I mean, the promise could be that I could watch her, or them handcuffed until they get back, or
So I think yes, they do ask you to watch her and to stay here, and they take off one part of the handcuffs and lock it onto a pipe that's right there, and they go and investigate what it is that you were saying.
Fantastic. As they trot off, Cypress will turn to be like, "This is a distinct improvement."
Although not a total fix yet. I might need to do something a little weird.
That's you.
Okay, I thought you'd understand.
I try.
Before you do that, Moonicorn, what are you doing now that you saw them take Nyla off to the side, and they went out of your vision, your line of sight? What are you doing now? And obviously, a number of the soldiers are kind of looking at you to see if you do something stupid. They really want you to do something stupid.
No, I'm sure they would like me to do something stupid. I mean, I don't want to disappoint them.
So many good fans, right?
No. But I'm concerned about Nyla. So I want to go check on them. And I sling my guitar to my back so that I don't have a weapon drawn. And try to calmly make my way over to where I saw Nyla taken to the side.
Okay.
And if I'm able to get there, then I'm going to be coming face to face with Cypress.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I mean, I think you are able to kind of as long as you're slowly able to do it, I think you're able to kind of make your way over there. So it's the three of you.
My work here is done.
One thing I will ask, Space Wurm, what have you been doing all this time? Now that I think you knew as soon as your signal got jammed, you knew that was happening. What have you done since then?
Well, I've prepared some tea for myself and bit of, and I've had tea prepared and lunch, since this is going all according to plan.
Awesome. That is awesome on a lot of levels. Okay. So the three of you are now with all surrounding this pole that Cypress is locked to. The other, what weird thing were you going to do? What one weird thing?
I was going to ask the other world to provide me with something useful.
Some sort of key, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Perhaps. So what does that look like? I feel like this would be something different.
Yeah. I think I might need to. I like the idea that in order to ask the other world, generally, unless it's just like a gathering information thing, I need to sort of harness somebody's like hope or dream or desire or something within them in order to kind of manifest that into a physical thing. So I think in this case, it might be, if this makes sense, Andy, it could be like Cypress's desire for freedom, like within their life as a whole, like to get out of the, the job that they're stuck in and everything like that, but to take that sort of ideal and manifest that into a physical representation of that, which would be a thing to free you.
Yes, so good.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So, can you guys remind me what the bonds are between Ziggy and Cypress?
So the only bond that Cypress has with Ziggy is loving. So it's what do you love about Moonicorn, and it's the fact that they're like rebellious and are fighting marginalization and are fighting false, like all these false binaries, right? They're arguably, we could at this point take it to being like, they're everything I want to be. There might be some of that, right? If we think about the context right here, right now.
And in mine to Cypress are that I've heard the most stories about Cypress, and I'm trying to rescue them from their humdrum corporate life.
Right. And I guess I know that, both of us have seen Cypress in a dream of some kind. And okay, so I think I'd look over to Ziggy and just say, well, I'm sorry I haven't shown you before, but the circumstances are a bit dire, so I'm gonna have to do something. I'll explain it to you later, but just avert your eyes if you have to. Like knowing how you might feel about what I'm going to do.
I don't have to.
Okay. And then I think I kneel down in front of where Cypress is like leaned up against the pole, and I just say, now hold still. This won't hurt. And I hope it doesn't make you uncomfortable.
Very reassuring.
And I think I lean in and I sort of like grab the side of your face with my hand, and I press my face right up to yours so that our eyes are like just like staring right into each other. And
oh yeah, Cypress is on about this.
Yeah. And I think the way that I do this is sort of I like this theme of darkness and being able to kind of get things from that. So I think I'm sort of trying to focus as hard as I can on the dark of your pupil and sort of like peer into that and sort of yeah, like I said before, just harness those feelings of a desire for freedom and for escaping a situation you don't want to be in, and then yeah, manifest that into something. So I guess I'm gonna have to roll for this at some point. It sounds great.
Yes.
And everything.
Go ahead and roll.
In the meantime, our characters are touching. It's real good and real tense. So let's see what. Yeah.
All right. Oh wait, that's the 6.
But
Moonicorn believes in you, right?
But Moonicorn believes in you. But of course, Moonicorn really can't be looking you in the eyes right now.
Yeah, that's true. That's accurate.
Fictional positioning just hosed you.
Would Cypress intentionally or unintentionally help me?
Yeah, I was gonna say there.
Yeah, absolutely. Cypress would be all about helping, especially when this version of helping come like you as a strange, wondrous individual who like Cypress cares about, who is then suddenly in close physical proximity, and Cypress is reassessing as a somebody to be sweet on, right? Like,
Right.
there's just so many new possibilities and things to be excited about.
So why don't you go ahead and roll plus the number of bonds that you have with the other.
Great. So is that 2d6 plus 1?
So
Great.
so maybe it's just like I would just say to you, like, just think about freedom as I like lean in and
yeah,
do that.
the helping is Cypress's hand laid over top your own in this process, and we'll see if that does us any good whatsoever.
Shane, I think your dice body's broken again.
Uh-oh.
Are those your ones?
That's another snake eyes.
Another set of snake eyes, which seems improbable, but not impossible.
Amazing.
Can I make eye contact with anybody?
No.
Nope.
I didn't even think about that move when I was establishing this fiction here, but it happens.
You did good.
Yeah. All right.
I can't believe in you if I can't see you in the eyes.
So on a 6 or less, the GM tells you the consequences, but the 7 or 9 is trouble comes with it. Either way, it's always marked by its otherworldliness. But I don't necessarily get the thing, but that could influence what goes wrong here.
Yes.
I'd also like to say that my homeworld is called Reverie. I don't know.
Yes.
So you guys are kind of looking deeply into one another's eyes. And
the real easy answer is that the police come back to this scene.
and you kind of, both of you somewhat lose time briefly. And Moonicorn, you see this happen quickly, but you kind of like don't really believe that it's happening. And what you see is the other reaches back onto the where the handcuff is cuffed to the pipe, and it kind of, they touch it and it comes undone, and then instead of just kind of like pulling it off, they kind of like pull it through around the back of the pipe and then kind of pop their hand into it, and it closes. So the two of them are now locked to one another on this pipe. And
Couldn't possibly have thought of a better way to do this.
And you hear the a couple of soldiers kind of coming back, and you hear them saying something along the lines of, you know, hey, I think we left him back here.
And my eyes just go wide and look at you when I realize what happened. But yeah, I think it's up to Moonicorn here.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting this version of things.
Me neither.
So, maybe that would be a good place to pause for the evening. That sound good to people? Maybe we can
Okay.
afterward.
Yeah, it's
Sounds like
fine.
Sounds
Is
like
it
a
okay with you,
good.
Vincent?
Yeah. Wait, am I still in? No, I'm on mute. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. I'm going to stop the broadcast now.